Most people don't fail in relationships because they don't try hard. They fail because they keep operating on the same internal system and expecting different results. I was one of these people, so I understand what it means to be in the automatic programming that has been stored in there from childhood and then attracting not very aligned people into my life in terms of relationship, especially romantic ones. I'm Karolina, the Connection Catalyst, and this is the Connection Catalyst podcast, episode 1, where I will be sharing my own story, how I kept attracting quite abusive people in the past into my life as partners and who I attracted to my life afterwards, and how I recognized the same patterns that men, especially the leaders, especially high achievers, especially the entrepreneurs, have when it comes to love, because I was on the other side of the spectrum, right? Like I was in partnership with these kind of men multiple times. And because of how I lived my life traveling for so long, I was able to recognize very similar things in men's subconscious mind, these programs that I was talking about, that are repeatedly coming up over and over again. And it doesn't matter if it's with this person or the next person you date or you're in a relationship with, the same things is going to come up if you're still not working on it and you still haven't reprogrammed it. So I've been traveling for the last 13 years. I started going on student exchange when I was 20 years old. Now I'm 33. And because of that, I was changing the place every few months. That made me meet a lot of different people from a lot of different cultures and made me really date different range of like characteristics that these people displayed. For example, if you date someone Nordic, like I dated a Finnish guy, and then afterwards, I went to Estonia for an exchange and I dated an Italian guy. And then these people were completely different, right? One was super cold, very poker face, didn't express any emotions. And then one was, Italian, one was like super gesturing, super open and talkative and so on, also based on the culture. But even in different cultures, there are some patterns for specific personality types, like entrepreneurs, for example, or leaders or high performing men that are effective and driven that I could see across the globe. So it didn't matter where these men are from culturally, the patterns displayed in them were still the same. And I treated my life, especially as a traveler, as kind of like a research. Like, I was curious about, okay, what are different people feeling? What are different men feeling? How they are operating? And what I discovered was actually super interesting. 10 years ago, I started diving really deeply into the subconscious mind and how it operates, how we are just displaying everything that was programmed in us since childhood, and we're just copy pasting it into our adulthood. And this is crazy. This realization really changed the way how I look at myself and the relationships and made me recognize so many repeated patterns. So I've been with a lot of men over the years, also because of the nature of, dating only for some time, because then I left. But I did have long-term relationships too, one for 5 years and one for 3.5 years, and two of them for almost a year. But also like short term, more like romances, because I'm really curious about human psychology. So I've been dating all these different people from all these different cultures and just getting my data points. And now I can share from my experience and all the data I've gathered what are the patterns that can show up in relationships between men and women, and especially between women like me who really want to date the ambitious, driven men who are really into business and they are creators and visionaries, and what kind of challenges can show up on this kind of journey for both of us. This podcast will be mainly directed to men because I feel like men are the driving force of our life. I mean, like they are the initiators. Masculine energy is the one that starts things, and the feminine energy is the one that surrenders and follows. So I'm directing this mostly to men so that they can take this information, change themselves, and then lead with more presence, with more peace, with more emotional mastery, and lead everyone around them. Because the men are responsible for leadership. And so if we can lead with love, like real love and real peace within, without stressing out, without creating constant conflicts with our partner, then the life is so beautiful. So in my relationships, I've had experiences where I was dating a narcissist and I was completely lost in this dynamic because at that point I didn't know that to not be in this kind of dynamic, it requires skills and requires enough self awareness to even see this dynamic through and to not be subject to someone else. I was manipulated by this person. I was treated really badly. He played on my low self esteem at that time. And after that, it made me realize like, wow, we actually lack emotional skills to cope with our negative beliefs about ourselves, with our emotional charge that we've been holding on since childhood. And that's why I've learned so many modalities like NLP, like working with childhood trauma, working with beliefs with the modality called Psych K, and many others, so that I can really dive deeply into the reprogramming that needs to happen. Because what I saw also in many men in my life, especially the high performing men, and I dated a few of them with the same exact patterns, was that they overworked, they were exhausted, they might have chronic fatigue, they might lead to burnout, they might just not value all other areas of their life as much because they felt like they need to succeed in business so much and they felt like, okay, if they don't do it, they're not going to feel enough. And they actually connected success to their self esteem. I mean, there was a link between how much money I have or how successful in business I am and how they thought about themselves. And they could shut down emotionally because, if a high performing man wants to be effective, he sees emotions as something that is a waste of time, right? And then they don't actually see how effective it is to work on the emotions, and that actually the most effective way to be better in business and have the best results is to work on your emotions, because then any action you take is not based on stress, it's based on peace and the why behind what you're doing, so your intention behind it. So what you're starting with dictates also your results. Because if you want to, for example, lose weight because you're scared to be fat, the result is going to reflect your intention of fear, right? And if you just love your body and you want to be healthy and then you're going to go to the gym, then your result is also going to be different based on the intention that you entered with. So that's why it's so important for me to talk about this, because I feel like I could prevent, just by bringing more awareness, so many of the conflicts between these leaders, high performing men, and people like me, so their partners, just by bringing more awareness to the patterns that are automatic and then showing how these patterns can be reprogrammed to actually live more in peace. My core message here is that avoiding emotions doesn't actually make you weak. It makes you less effective because there is so much shit, so much emotional charge stored in your body that if it's unexpressed, it's just gonna blow either way, now or later. You're just gonna get triggered with the smallest things. You're gonna be stressed at work. You're gonna be overcompensating with some addictions like porn or alcohol or some kind of drugs or even coffee or anything else, or you might lead to some kind of illness in your body because you're working so much and you don't actually work on the balancing of your health, your relationships, your connections with friends, your other areas of life, maybe spirituality as well. If you're only focused on one goal and one goal only, which is to make more money. And these patterns are not only displayed by like stupid people. I mean, we are smart people, I mean, we, because I'm sure that you are as well, the one who is watching. And even the smart people have unconscious patterns. And like, I was completely manipulated. And I had the best grades at school. I was always like excelling as the best student and so on. I'm pretty intelligent. I'm pretty smart and so on. And all my friends as well. And when the patterns are coming up, it doesn't actually matter how smart you are, because this is not based on your intellect, it's based on your emotions, on your trauma, on your charge and stress that you hold on in your body. And that's why it's so good to have awareness of what these patterns can be. This is exactly why in the next episode, I'm going to talk about Enneagram personality typology. This is my favorite personality typology, and I will go in depth into it over 4 episodes. First is going to be the fundamentals, and then 3 are going to be talking specifically about each personalities. And I want to emphasize here that this is literally a manual to humans. And if you want to have better relationships, even in business, but also in your love life or with friends and so on, if you learn how it works, This is going to make your relationships skyrocket. Look, this is what has helped me on my journey. I started diving into Enneagram 10 years ago in 2015, and look, I can't really speak words well. In English, I can see. And this is what really has made me realize all these subconscious programs that I've had, but also people around me, and made it so easy for me to communicate with people, especially the ones that I'm close to, because I understand my programming, I understand their programming, I understand where we could have disagreement and when we could agree and what value we can bring to each other. So I really recommend, if you're curious about it, to watch the furthest episodes, because it's going to be amazing journey to dive deeper into human psychology and how it all works. And like we need to give ourselves grace and compassion because we are not taught at school how to navigate our emotions. And most men, especially the leaders, the driven men, are so skilled in business and in making money and getting shit done and so on, but they lack the emotional skills, emotional mastery that will bring them also peace in relationships or in dating life. So this is what I'm here to bring, because I think that everyone can learn how to navigate their emotions. It's a skill like any other skill, like marketing, like, I don't know, going to the gym and knowing how to do exercise as well. And it's something that you can actually train. And then imagine if you mastered your emotions, you actually master your life. Because no matter what comes your way, you know that you're sweet because you can actually handle any emotional charge that comes your way. So this is exactly what I want to bring with this podcast and also to the people that I'm working with, that when we master our emotions, we master our life, because this is one of the most important, if not the most important skill that we might learn in order to navigate any challenge in love, any challenge in business, any challenge in life. So I'm hoping that with this podcast, and this is just the start, I will bring you more skills, more awareness about yourself. And of course, if at any point you feel like you want to work with me one-on-one, you're going to also be able to do it. I will put the links to apply to work with me in every description of every episode on Spotify and YouTube. But my point is, let's spread this awareness about emotional mastery, because this literally can change our lives, not only as individual humans, but our whole collective, our whole society. Because if we start treating ourselves better with more compassion, understanding, and love, and treat our emotions as not something to suppress and deny and disown, but something to actually get some information from, then we're going to be better off as the whole earth and whole society. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. This is just a little introduction so that you know a bit about me and why I'm doing what I'm doing and what I want to bring with this podcast. I hope to see you in the next episode about Enneagram. And thank you so much for being here with me and listening to me. I really hope that this podcast will inspire you to grow, to get better, to be more efficient in how you work on yourself, and to really feel the transformation with each and every technique that I'm going to present to you, and to feel that, okay, finally, I have the skills that actually work. So thank you so much for listening. This is Karolina, the Connection Catalyst, and I hope to see you in the next episode.